Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today we're going to be speaking to Ann Trason, who is an ultra endurance runner, and she has won the Western States Endurance Run women's race 14 times, twice beating all of the men but one. During her career, which has spanned from the late 1980s through to 2004, she set world records for 50 miles, 100 Ks, 12 hours and 100 miles. So Anne, it's absolutely fantastic to have you on the Tough Girl podcast. If you could just introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit more about you.
Well, my name's Ann Trason. I live right now in OBrien, California, which may not mean a lot to you, but it means a lot to people about a race that I did 14 times called the Western States Endurance Run. It's a 100-mile race. It starts at Squaw Valley, which was where the 1960 Olympics were, Winter Olympics. Goes through the mountains and ends in the foothill town, very nice little town of Auburn, and I'm at mile 99 on the course. That's how much I like it. I bought a house it's a mile from the finish because it's really 100.2 miles.
You are one of the best American ultra runners ever, but if we could go back to when it all really started. So as a child, were you into running? How did you get your start?
Well, I was always active. As a matter of fact, when I was starting to go from crawling to running, my mom never could keep track of it, and I still have the original shoes. They put bells on them because they never knew where I was. I was really, really very active, and my poor dad, I wasn't a very coordinated child, so I couldn't do ball games, and my dad was really into tennis and soccer, and I was pretty pathetic. And then in 6th grade, we had this thing called the presidential fitness thing. He did all this fitness stuff, timed events, like how many sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, all this stuff. It was supposed to get you all fit, to say, oh, you're in pathetic shape, get fit. But they had a 6-minute timed, and I did under a mile. I did like 1 mile and, 150 yards. I was second in my little elementary school, and my dad was like, whoa, we finally found something that Ann can do. So there was an ad in the paper for a club sport for track and field, and he plopped me down there and said, this is what you're going to do.
How did you feel about that?
You know, I loved my friends, but I really was like, I wanted to play. And my dad's really serious. You know, he was born in the Czech Republic, so just has a different outset. You know, you're not allowed to like goof off, and it was goofy. It was fun. I was like running backwards and all that. And then I got really sick. I got this thing called mononucleosis. It's kind of this virus. I had to stay in bed for 6 weeks. And I missed my friends. So then I told my dad I'd do anything he wanted. I wouldn't run backwards anymore. I'd take it seriously. I'd really work out and do all that. I didn't look back. It just changed my life. So that's how I got into running.
You've got your dad, he's quite serious. You know, you're running around. You obviously had this illness, but you got over the illness and you started to take it more and more seriously. When did it really become serious for you?
You know, it never did. I mean, okay, well, I ran high school cross country. It was way back because I'm a dinosaur. Girls weren't allowed to run in high school, some sports.
Wow.
So you could run with the boys. So I ran with the boys team, and we had a really good cross country team.
God, it must have been quite an interesting time then, not being allowed to run. And so
it was very fascinating. It was very, very interesting in that we had this club team and just the dynamics. And our school was very late in implementing Title IX, which was this, it came down from our judicial system that schools had to spend equal amount of money and have the same amount of sports facilities for men and women, or girls really there, and also anything that was had federal money for it. And we were a public school. So it passed in 1972, and I was already through, but they didn't implement it till I was out of high school.
Why did you keep on the running then? What was it about the running that you enjoyed?
Oh, I loved, it's same social thing. I loved this team. And there was a couple girls. We had the best time. I ran club track because I had opportunities in the track that I couldn't have. Going to invitationals and doing things and getting to do a lot of traveling that I wouldn't have gotten at my high school because I wasn't allowed to do anything. As a matter of fact, the coach told me if I went out for track, I could work the invitationals, but I couldn't run them. I could run the dual meets because they were during the week, but anything on the weekends, the girls had to go there and be like the assistants for the boys. And I was horrified. So I just told them to take a hike. I really did. And I ran club. But it was more just that social, and it, why did I become an ultra runner? A lot of it was because it was very similar to when I ran with the boys and my few girlfriends. It was the same kind of feeling where you're out there on the trails and you share things that you wouldn't share with anyone else. It's very special. There's nothing like it in the world. I mean, you spend that much time out on the trails with someone, you become so close to them in a way that you can't be close with anyone else.
Were you always successful when you started out running?
No. I didn't like really racing. I just liked training and stuff. As a matter of fact, my junior year in high school, they started just having the 10,000 for senior nationals and club. And that's when Jan Merrill and Francie LaRue, I mean, they were setting world records and American records. The U.S. women were very hot at the time. I went to senior nationals because I could qualify. My coach thought that would be really good as a 15-year-old to go. I got dead last, and I got lapped. I was humiliated. I remember, and I was talking to someone because I was just out at this high school meet, some person from the stand, they have that, lap clap for people in last place. I called it the humiliation lap. So this is at UCLA, which is a big stadium. And there's Ann getting lapped and dead last, and the whole stadium's clapping. I started crying, bawling like I was going to die. Like, oh my God, I got last and lapped. My life is coming to an end. Only like a 15-year-old would do. Someone gave me an orange. I'll never forget that. But it made me think, I was so ridiculously embarrassed when I kind of stopped crying. I was like, that was pathetic. I worked so hard from then on. I said, I'm not going to get lapped the next year. There is no way. So I qualified again. Which wasn't easy because you had to find out 10,000, and there weren't that many in the day that a girl could go run or any woman could do on the track. I qualified and get there. I got 6th overall, and I didn't get lapped. That was the most important thing. But I did. I got 6th. It was quite a feat, and it showed me that hard work really pays off. That whole year, even through cross country, I was like, my focus, I guess it taught me that I'm able to focus on a goal. Once I have a goal, then my mother always said, and I'm trying not to be this way as I get older, and I think I'm mellowing. She said, you just had and I was hurt when she said that. She said, Ann, she called me doll. She never called me Ann. It's kind of a long story, but you have a switch. You're either on or off. And I was like, wow, that's kind of an insult. But I think in my running career, that was something to dial in. And I learned how to dial that in, that kind of laser focus, and use it to when I had a goal. That was 6th in the nation at 17-year-old for the 10K.
Being lapped, feeling humiliated, coming in that dead last place. And actually that could really affect your self-confidence and your self-belief. And I know with a lot of young girls that could have been, do you know what, I'm not very good at this whole running thing. I don't think I should do it anymore. I've come last. But for you went the other way. That gave you an added motivation and added determination to say, do you know what, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work hard at this. I'm going to train, and I'm going to come back next year and prove you're wrong. Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I think that's just the way I roll. I think that's my makeup. Something will take me down for a while, and I might brood a bit, but I turn it around. I'm not someone who really, I'm always looking forward and always trying to problem solve. And people always ask me, like, what made you a good ultra runner? And I was like, I'm a good problem solver. I wasn't really talented as a runner, but when you're out there for 100 miles, things are going to pop up all over the place, and you're going to be stuck with things you had no idea were going to bother you. And if you can't problem solve those, you're done. And I love to problem solve. My brain's always racing, and I'm always like, and I'd always think, like, what if this happened? How would I deal with it? What if this happened? How would I deal with it? And it's just a way of thinking. Those kind of the people that really excel, other than the super talented people that never have problems, then you really do excel. But I always had problems. There was never 100 that I didn't have something that I had to deal with and see how I would do it.
Could you give an example of some of the problems that you're solving on these 100-mile runs?
I had a lot of problems with my stomach, where I'd eat something and then sorry, I don't want to be too blunt, but it wouldn't stay down, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And then you'd feel really sick, and you couldn't drink, and you'd not be eating. So you'd have to figure out ways like chew on ice cubes, get your core temperature down, maybe just walk a little bit and regroup. Maybe try something else. Maybe a little bit of soup or a little Coke. Coca-Cola is awesome. And just know a little bit amount. I had one time, I never got blisters, for example. Never got blisters. And then I'm at mile 85 of 100, and I'm getting, and it hurts, and it really hurts, and I can tell it's a big blister. And I'm like, what do I do? Well, I'm like, how do I pop it? What do I do? Well, you have your numbers pinned on you. So I just stopped in the middle of the trail, took a pin, the safety pin out of my number, and took the shoe off and just popped the blister. Put my, I took socks off, put the socks back on. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not like hygiene. You could get it infected. Popped the blister. Boy, did it feel good. And then I just ran down the trail. But the person who was running with me, because you can have pacers for safety, that's like more of a safety person. The guy's like, what are you doing? And I said, I got to get this blister. It's killing me. And he's like, you're not just, what? And I just stopped right in the middle of the trail. And he's like, get up. He's like yelling at me. And I'm like, no, really, I got to do this. And afterwards, he always told people, he said, I couldn't believe that Ann would do that. He said, only Ann would do that. And I'm like, no, anyone who has a blister would do that.
So sorry, so you said about the problem solving, so having issues with your stomach, popping blisters. What other issues have you had while you've been running?
You have a down patch. How are you going to get through it? Mental issues, tired, very tired. Issues with other people in a race not being nice to you.
What was that? Was that because you were female running, or?
Yeah, it wasn't so much the runner, but the pacer. A lot of times these people who run with you would get more competitive. Well, of course, the person who's running's been out there forever, so they're pretty much brain dead. And you start with a new up-and-coming friend. And they'd say some nice not things. Or one time in a race, because there's a river crossing at mile 80 at Western States. And it usually crossed with a rope, but this year it was so high they had a boat. So I get to the aid station before this other dude, and I'm having my bottles filled. Well, there's only one boat that year, and it's 20 minutes. And so the guy jumps in, I get there, and this other guy gets there just after me, and he jumps in the boat. I don't know about it. And that means I would have had to wait 20 minutes, but I was there before him. So a friend told me, he says, Ann, and he just threw my bottles in the boat and said, get in there. That guy can't do that to you. And no one else was saying anything, but it was just this friend that was down there working the aid station. But things like that, it's like, do you want to be reduced to their level, or you just smile and splash a little water on yourself and say, hey, I'm just going to keep going and make the best of it and not have it take you down? Because that isn't why I run. I mean, it easily could have said, wow, this is really awful and humiliating and make you feel bad about human society that they would do that.
What age were you when you did your first big ultra race?
I was 25.
25. And what did you decide to do? Did you go for a 100-miler or a 50-miler?
I did a 50. I did a half marathon. I didn't do too well. And I was very much inspired by a woman named Sally Edwards. She was a very inspiring runner, wrote books. So I'm looking through this magazine called The Competitor, and I see an ad for a 50-mile race, and I thought it was a joke. I mean, I thought it was a misprint. I was like, no one runs 50 miles. And I see it's Sally Edwards, the same person has a course record. So I called the race director and asked him if it's really 50 miles, and they said yes. And would you like to try? And I said, sure. So I sent in my application, and I did it. I think I had 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I had no idea what I was doing. Oh, my goodness. And it was really hot. It was the hottest year they ever had. It was 110 degrees. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even have a water bottle. Some nice guy became friends with him. His wife gave me a water bottle. This guy just took me under his wing, arm, and taught me everything during the 50-miler. It was quite impressive that I finished. It was unpleasant. It was so unpleasant.
How did it go?
Well, I started out, and I'm just, I'm pretty enthusiastic young pup. Even though 25 might seem old, but I was probably acting like 10. And Sally Edwards is in the race, and I loved her. So I go binging up to her at mile 5, like, yay. I get to meet her, and I'm asking if she'll sign my book, because I have all these books, and I idolized her, just like, whoa. And I'm talking to her nonstop, about how much I admired her and this and that. She turns to me, and she goes, I can spot a rabbit when I see one. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she says, you got to learn to pace yourself. And I was horrified. I was like, that wasn't very nice. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her and I took off. And the whole time I said, I'm either going to die or I'm going to beat her. I was like, I'm not a rabbit. My feelings were hurt. She hurt my feelings. She really did. So the whole time I'm doing this run going, I can't believe how hurt my feelings are. So I beat her. And I set a course record. It was her course record I broke. She wasn't happy about it. I'm not kidding. And it wasn't like I wanted to beat her. I was just wanted to prove to her. And that's my problem. It's always like proving to myself or proving to someone else. Anything you'll know about me, that's sort of my theme in my life. It's like either I'm proving it to myself or proving to someone else who's doubted myself. Because I have a lot of self-doubt. Everyone has self-doubts. But when someone self-doubts me or I self-doubt my person, that kind of motivates me as a person to try harder.
But I have to say, I mean, meeting your idol, so somebody you've idolised, Sally Edwards, you've idolised her for years, you've got all of her books. How was that relationship almost afterwards, after meeting her?
Well, she wanted to interview me for some races, for some books. She was not books, but articles. And she hurt my feelings again, although she was right on this one. And she asked me what my training was like, because I went to her house. She lives in Sacramento. And she says, you're doing everything physiologists would say is the wrong training.
So what was your training? What were you doing when you sort of didn't know what you were doing?
I ran way too much. I read then. There wasn't much to read, but if I read it, I did it. And so there was this guy, Chuck Jones, in the day. He was on the cover of Outside Magazine. He was running 180 miles a week, so I thought that's what you had to do. Well, my body can't handle that kind of mileage. So I ended up my knees were injured and everything. It took me 2 failures at Western States to learn all of the dumb things. And I made all the mistakes I made so many mistakes in those first 2 years. And the kind of what really I failed. And after I failed the second time, I got really depressed. And I went to this cabin that my parents had. And I stayed there for a week and I wrote down everything I did wrong. I wish I had that book. And I was determined to learn from all my mistakes.
Absolutely. You talked about like Western States 100. Can you just explain in a bit more detail what this race is and why it's such an incredible race?
Well, how it started was it's really started as a horse event. It starts at Squaw Valley, which is about 5,000 feet, and it goes up a ski slope basically, and then it runs along the spine of the Sierra Mountains, which are gorgeous. The view is incredible. Donner Party, all this stuff, like it's all historical. It's all the old mining routes. And then you drop through all these wonderful, beautiful canyons into beautiful rivers. But you feel like you're just crossing all the beauty of California. So you're running from east to west. And you have 23,000 feet of climb and 28 negative. It's just a lot of rolling trails, single track trails. It started, like I said, as a horse race. And then some guy's horse went lame. And he said, I bet I could run it. So he bet $1. This guy, Gordy Amesley, and he ran it. And from then on, I guess, as they say, the rest is history. Then it became a race. Right now, it's very hard to get into. They have to limit it. The Forest Service only allows like 380 people to do it. So, for instance, you have to get in through a lottery, and you have to qualify. And there's a whole list of qualifiers. It's quite hard even to get into a qualifier. There's a 3.6% chance the first year you get in, you'll get in your first year. It's just very popular just because it's the oldest.
So you did the first race in 1987. And
85, you mean American River, yeah.
And you had to drop out of that race.
Oh, no, in 87, I did drop out of Western States the first year because that's when I was following Chuck Jones's 180-mile weeks, and I blew out my knee. Then the next year I went in, and I was stupid, and I got really dehydrated, and I got to 7 miles from the finish, and I told the doctor I'd been throwing up for 20 miles, and I looked green as, like, I don't know, grass. So they pulled me. They said I couldn't go on. I was really devastated. I could have finished. One thing I learned, don't tell people you've been throwing up for 20 miles. That doesn't go over really well. So then I wasn't going to do another one, but a friend of mine was doing Leadville, and he talked me into joining him for training. So I went to Leadville, and I finished Leadville. It wasn't easy, but I did finish. Because that's after I wrote down all the stupid things I did, and I tried to implement not doing all the stupid things.
Can you remember some of the stupid things that you were doing?
Overtraining, not drinking, not eating, not being in the now moment, like just, lollygagging and looking at the beauty and not thinking of like when's the last time I ate anything, not trying to keep cool when it's hot. all sorts of things, wearing the appropriate clothes. Mostly a lot about training, because I just really loved running, and I ran with a dear friend of mine, and we just ran a lot and hard. And I need a lot of easy days to recover, and so I started implementing only 3 hard days a week, and the rest of them were either days off or just super, super, super easy days. That really helped a lot.
So you've got the Leadville Trail 100, and you've got a friend, and he's encouraged you to come and do this race. Can you tell us a little bit more about that race?
Oh, that was just a joy to finish. I didn't think I could. The pretty funny thing about it was talking about about 80 miles, from 20 miles to finish. You go through this, they call it a mountain, but it really isn't. It's just this thing. It has a lot of plateaus along the way. It's called Sugarloaf, and I was really tired. And I had a friend, Dick Collins. He used to do a lot of them. He wasn't super fast, but he was kind of my mentor. And he used to take naps. So I thought maybe if I took a nap, I'd feel better. So I lie down on the trail. And the guy I was with who was helping me, he takes my flashlight. It's dark. And he says, I'm not spending the night out. He had it. He just starts walking and left me there. And I start crying. Oh, don't leave me. Yay. And then he said, and then we didn't talk to the finish. I just ran. I was like, fine, whatever. So he was right. But I just was like, oh, looking for all these stupid things. I'll tell you, at that point, the only thing that feels good is the finish line.
How do you deal with that pain and that tiredness?
I try and break things in little bitsy pizzas, whatever you need to do. One of the years I was finishing, I think it was the first year I ever finished Western States, right where I have this house now. Frank Shorter, who's a famous runner, they were filming it for Wild World of Sports. I didn't know he was out there, and I thought I was hallucinating because Frank's there with a microphone, and he asked me, how do I do it? And at that time, I was really tired, and I was running tree to tree. I'm not kidding. I was just like, okay, I'm going to run to this tree, and then I'll think about it. I'm going to run to the next tree. And I honestly did the last 20 miles for like that. I did. And it kept me really in the moment. It's like, how do I get to the next tree? I have to drink a little water. I have to do this. So I just turned to him. I couldn't say anything. I was tongue-tied because he's really famous. And I had a crush on him in high school, which was, that was seriously. So I honestly, after I turned to my friend, I go, okay, I've lost it completely because I see Frank Shorter. What's going on? And my friend said, Ann, Frank's right there. So I said tree to tree, and my mother was a very polite person, just the sweetest, nicest person. She saw it on TV because they filmed it, and put it on Wild World of Sports. My mom said, how could you have been so rude to the man with the gold medal? Because he got a gold medal in the Olympics for the marathon. I thought that was so funny. I was like, Mom, it really was like that. She wasn't a runner. She didn't get it. She just thought I was being rude. Seriously, that's what I do. For the first part, I might do aid station to aid station, 10 mile. But when it gets really hard, I break it down. In Western States, I played a lot of games with my head. I broke the race and said it was 100-year of a life. And every mile was my age. And so like in the middle of the race, there's all these canyons, and I say it's like a middle-age crisis. But at miles 60, 65, it gets really sweet. There's this really awesome downhill. So I said, well, if I hit my middle-age crisis all right, I get an awesome retirement, and then I can just bomb. And then at mile 85, when I'm doing the kind of like, oh, my God, I'm tired, I just say, hey, Ann, it's okay. You're 85 years old. So I just had all these silly little games. That's how my brain works. Sorry, it's not, maybe the most flattering thing, but it was fun.
I think that the mental mindset and the games that you end up playing with yourself when you are running these sort of crazy ultra distances is just absolutely fascinating.
Well, everyone's different. I mean, that's what I tell everyone. You have to have your own mantras. You have to make whatever's fascinating. What I love states in the hundreds is, because I never had a perfect race, you get to the starting line and you have no idea what the day is going to be like. I had no idea. It's like, what is this day? And it's like a whole life. What are you going to experience and how are you going to deal with it? And it's not so much how you deal in the good times in life. It's how you deal when the things are hard that really shows your character. And I truly believe that. And that's why I loved ultras, because you really got to see what you were made out of.
What do you think you've learned most about yourself from all of the running that you've done?
I think I'm a very positive person, and I don't look back. I don't use rearview mirrors. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff in my life that hasn't been easy, and I'll not go into them. I don't have rearview mirrors in my life. And I learned that from ultra running. You got to keep looking forward, and you got to be positive. There are a lot of P's. I always tell people there are a lot of P's in ultra running. You don't realize positive, planning, preparing, pacing. I'll go off on the P's of ultra and people are like, oh, she's crazy. Yay. But no, I think being positive and trying to problem solve everything and progress. You want to progress forward, right? You don't want to go backwards.
And you mentioned as well about when you're running, about trying to be in the now, to be in the present. How easy do you find that? Or is it something that you've just sort of developed over the years and have got better and better and better at?
Oh, it's very difficult. And I have to let myself, I do it every 15 minutes. I kind of have this thing where I ask my body, like, how are my toes? How are my feet? How are my calves? How's my stomach? It helps with problem solving because you want to deal with the issues before they become detrimental and, race stopping. So I just had this kind of thing that I'd ask myself, how's your stomach? How's your head, Ann? Do you need a little salt? How are you feeling? Shake out your hands. Little things that might influence that you might be getting depleted with electrolytes or dehydration, things like that.
And in terms of like race strategy, when you go into races, do you have a race strategy in place or a way that you think the race is going to go, or do you just sort of leave it up to chance?
Oh no, I always tried to run easy in the beginning, and then it depended on the distance and what race I was doing, but I always was someone it bugged people. Like I said, I wasn't very talented. I had one speed, third gear. And the more I worked at it, maybe I got up to fourth gear, but I never really, it bugged people. They're like, but she doesn't, they'd want you to pick it up or do anything. I could just get into one pace. So I'd make myself not go out too fast because it would be above that pace. So I was someone who really paced herself well and tried to keep up with that. And it I never really tried to be competitive with other people. There were a few events in my life where it became competitive. But for the most part, I was competing only against myself. So I just tried to preserve Ann and make sure she didn't blow up.
Absolutely. And you said there were a few events where it did become competitive. Which events were they?
There was one for Comrades Marathon in South Africa. There was this woman named Maria Bach. She got popped afterwards for steroids. Ooh. At the time, I knew she was on steroids, but I couldn't say anything. So I think I get bonus points for not saying anything. But anyway, I ran with her a bunch of times, and she kept getting bigger and better and looking more muscular and everything. Anyway, she pushed me into a time in a way of running that I never knew it was possible. Because it was the downhill year at Comrades, but there's a lot of ups. So we get halfway, and there's major uphill. It's like, ugh. And she was running next to me, and she was playing with me. In South Africa, they used to call them buses. Everyone who ran together, it was a bus, and there was a bus driver. And she definitely was the bus driver. And I had beaten her before, like lots. But she kept getting better and better, like a half an hour. And I'm like, whoa, Maria's like, this is bad, man. And I'm looking at her, and she's cut up. Like, whoa, I don't know what you're taking, chick, but it ain't just water. But I can't say anything. And I'm thinking she's playing with my mind. And there's a lot of pressure. There's TV. And then she gets ahead of me by 2 minutes. And everyone keeps saying 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. I got so sick of 2 minutes. So it got to be 15K to go. And there's this big downhill. And I just said, you know what? I don't want to ever hear 2 minutes again. So I got on my toes and I just started sprinting like the finish line was like in a K. And the next time I heard, she was 1 minute and 45 ahead of me. And I was like, cool, I'm going to get to a minute. I'm just going to finish 1.5 minutes behind her. 1.5 minutes. I beat her by 2 minutes. I ran one of the fastest splits that last 15K. I don't know who that person was. I became out of my skin possessed. I wasn't pleased with the person that was because I was just running through the crowds just like crazy. But I was like, I just don't want the 2 minutes. That's all I heard in my head. And then it cracked me up. I honestly think I beat her by almost exactly 2 minutes. When I came into the stadium, it's a huge stadium. I mean, Comrades, I don't know how many people know. There's millions of people. I'm not exaggerating. That come. It's so close that people are touching you as you get into like a tunnel of people to get to the stadium. And honestly, today, I don't know how I did that. But and that's probably the most competitive race I ever did. She cracked me up at the finish. They're interviewing her, and she said, well, I would have won, but my feet hurt. And I just was like, in the back of my head, and I was like, you think you run, and it's a 54-mile race on pavement, okay? And you're running in racing flats. I was like, you think your feet are the only one that hurt? Mine were on fire. I mean, honestly, when I finished, I had to take my shoes off. I thought they were burned. It was really painful. Yeah, I mean, you're dropping like a rock that last 15K. It was crazy. It's like, whoa. Anyway, yeah, that was in some ways it was my most proudest moment. In some ways it was my least proudest moment, because I just became like this possessed, like someone I didn't even like. Because I don't like to be like that. But hey, I'm glad I beat her. And then she went to this 100K 6 weeks later, and she got popped for testosterone. So, it's part of the sport, drugs. That really upset me. So that's one of the reasons I stopped running internationally. I just said, you know what, it's not worth it. Why should you train when you know all these people are doing drugs? And she got a 2-year suspension, but they invited her back. That kind of was shocking. But anyway, yeah, that really was a hard knock.
I mean, you've done some phenomenal races throughout your career, from Western States to the Comrades Marathon to the Leadville Trail. I mean, that race obviously stands out because you said you sort of brought out the best in you and also brought out the worst in you. Do you have any other races where there have been particular highlights or particular challenges that you faced?
I think my first Western States, my mother was really sick at the time, and I adored her. She was very, very ill. And she saw me finish, and she died that year. And so that finish, probably I have pictures of that, was probably the thing I cherished the most.
How old were you when you lost your mother?
Well, 29, but 29 sounds old, but it really isn't. She would have gone to South Africa, and my life would have been so different. And she was just the rock in my life, kind of the solid. I talked to her every single day, and I drove her nuts. I just like to hear her voice.
Yeah. I don't know about you, a race that I recently did in the Marathon des Sables, and we had trackers on us. And one of the things that I could imagine is the people that I cared about, and I could picture their voices in my head saying, "Come on, Sarah, you can do it, go for it," and all of that. Do you get that with your mum?
Yes, she's always, and I'm always now saying, what would my mom want me to do in this situation? How do I become a better person? Because she was a great person. So I try and mentor people now, because I coach people. I think it's more of a mentoring, how she would deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are doing the mentoring and the coaching that you're doing. What sort of advice are you handing out to people?
It's personalized. What I do, anyone now, everything's on the internet. You can get any kind of schedule and everything. I think what I offer to a lot of people, it's on an individual basis, but it's mentoring whatever they need. A lot of it's mental, nutrition, just knowing they have someone in their corner means so much. Or, just to call and say, I'm a little tired. What do I do? Or this race, this sort of thing. I was just talking to the guy, this is one of my people I'm working with, and we're dealing with, should you do handhelds or you should do a vest? And if you do handhelds and you're running fast, how do you get your goo out and not get frustrated? Even though it is a little frustrating to be dealing with the zipper and getting out the goo. We're having this hour-long conversation on basically how to get your nutrition and your stuff when you're carrying it. How do you not get frustrated when you're really tired? And that's my job. I'm not kidding. That's what I do. And I love it. I adore the people I work with. When it works and it flows, it's like poetry. It's like this relationship that I never dreamed I could have.
No, that's a lovely way of describing it. What other things do you think are really important to make sure that you have a good ultra? You talked a lot about like the P's, so it's about being positive, it's about the planning, the preparation, the pacing. Which would you say is almost the most important thing that you need to get right?
You have to do everything. You can't let anything. That's what's so great about ultras. It's very complex. But, hydration's really important. You definitely don't want to get dehydrated out there.
Are you still running at the moment?
No, I stay active. I'm kind of, this is how crazy active I do a lot of stuff on the computer because I coach online. Basically, I got to walk in the treadmill. So there'll be days, seriously, where I'll walk 18, 20 miles typing with my clients. So I am always an active person. I don't sit still. I'm not a sit still kind of gal. So, and if my knee's better, I'll do spin classes or walk my dogs. But no, I don't, I've been there, done there. And I really, really, I know it sounds kind of zen and all that, but I get more out of helping people and seeing them finish and experience their goals I mean, how lucky is it? I'm working with sometimes like over 40 people, and it's like I get to experience 40 people's journeys. It doesn't get better than that. It really can't. I feel very privileged in my life that I have, through running, have met some really incredible people, and they shaped who I am. And it wasn't me. It's all the people that were part. I always say it takes a village, and it does. And I've had some, and I still do. I have wonderful people in my life, and I feel blessed, and I always have.
You're focused on your coaching and your mentoring. You're still keeping fit and active. Do you have any other big goals that you want to accomplish?
Oh, I have a bucket list of things I want to do. I want to go to Bhutan and do the snowman trek. I want to climb Aconcagua. I mean, I have like this list that keeps me busy. I'm just chipping at it. I loved going to Nepal. I love the mountains. The mountains are calling me right now. I can't wait. I have a few things I have to do, and I just can't wait to get back to the Himalayas. I want to go to Bolivia. I mean, don't ask me. My list is really too long. I probably can't do all the things I want to do.
Oh, it's better to go for it. Have you actually raced over in Nepal at all? No,
I know. I don't wanted to race. I went there and did 3 long treks. And I haven't been back, but I want to go back.
Did you go to base camp or?
Yeah, we went to base camp, but we did something that were 5 passes. Went to Makalu base camp. God, that was kind of bad. Everything was closed. It started snowing. And went around Annapurna. I can't remember all the things. Just beautiful treks. We did most of them just with my partner at the time, the 2 of us. Yeah. It was really cool. I can't believe some of the stuff we did. It was kind of probably a little dangerous. A little bit. Not too much, but probably wasn't the safest stuff we did. We didn't have a GPS or anything, so we're just hiking around.
Oh, that sounds awesome. It sounds amazing. I do think it's one of the things I've recently done is been talking about like bucket lists and life lists or just do it lists. And I think it's so important, even if you don't achieve everything on the list, just even having a goal and having something to aim at is just so, so important. Any final words of advice for women out there who do want to get into running or they want to take on their first ultra? What words would you say to them?
I hate to say it. I know it's a slogan. I'd say just do it.
Well, you are sponsored by Nike, so.
I used it in the day I was. I'm not anymore. But honestly, don't let anyone else say you can't do something. The worst thing in life is not to try. I'd rather have failure than not to have tried at all. Because I've had failure, but it was worth the journey. So
Absolutely. I think what's really fascinating is with the Western states that actually, you did fail the first 2 times you went out there, but you obviously learned so much that when you did come back again, you then had this 10-year running streak of getting the course record, of winning it every single year, which is absolutely phenomenal. And you wouldn't have got there if you hadn't pushed through that failure, which is...
Well, I'll tell you, so this is just to end it on this. I always tell people, don't make a did not finish, a did not learn. It's okay to fail, but you've got to learn from your failures or you won't progress in life. There's the P's again. I can't help myself.
No, I love it.
I mean, basically, what I'm telling people is it's okay to fail, but you've got to learn from it. The worst thing you can do is make a failure and do not learn. So when people fail, they don't accomplish their goals or don't finish when I'm mentoring them, for instance. And even with all of them, they have to do race reports afterwards. I make them write in things of 3s because I think the brain's has a thing about 3s. 3 things you did right, 3 things you do differently, and 3 things that you learned from the experience. And I make every single one of them do that and send it to me. And then we go over it. So I have their pre-race stuff and post-race. And you want to learn even from the best times. You want to take what you learn so you can apply it. And I have them keep it for a reason. It's not like I'm just doing this out of my head. I make them read those reports before they do their next race because that's what I used to do. So it's there, it's in a file, it's somewhere on your computer, or you put it in a notebook, handwritten, and you go and you read it, and then you can apply that the next time.
Which is so important because you've got to be learning.
You've got to be learning, and if you can't, and it's so easy in life to forget things. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my memory is not as good as I'd like it to be. So if I don't have a list or something, I won't do it. So I used to do it in the day. I had files.
Now, Ann, you do have a coaching website. Do you just want to share your website details if people want to reach out to you and find out more about your coaching and mentoring services?
TrasonRunning.com. it has a site from there you can click on and find it. But I put on a running event, and I'm going to put on some camps, so everything's under now the Trason Running umbrella.
Fantastic. So trasonrunning.com, that's where people can go and find you. I will make sure I include all of this information in the show notes. And I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing so much information about your running career and your journey into ultra running and your different races and the various things you talked about. I did particularly like the P's, the progression, the positivity, the planning, the preparation, the pacing. Thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Ann Trason is just such an absolute running legend. What she's seen, what she's accomplished is absolutely incredible. I mean, even just taking Western States, winning that race once would be incredible. But to win it 14 times and to hold the record for 18 years just shows you what a phenomenal runner she was. The record was actually broken by Ellie Greenwood in 2012. And I interviewed Ellie a couple of episodes back. So do go listen to her episode as well, as she talks more about running Comrades, get how she first got into ultra running. So if you're interested in ultra running, that will be another episode to go and check out. I think Ann is just such an incredible role model for other women out there. I love how humble she is and how down to earth and how she just makes everything fun and she just gets on with it. She's not competitive about her races. The only person that she is competing against is herself. She doesn't really care about how other people do, obviously, apart from that race in Comrades, which she won by 2 minutes. But another fantastic episode. We are currently at 82,000 downloads, which is amazing. So we are getting very, very close to hitting the magical 100,000, and we've got 3 more episodes to go before that happens on the 4th of August. So please do continue to tell all of your friends about the Tough Girl podcast. Hit that button and subscribe. Leave a review if you haven't left a review already. And just keep telling your friends about it. Tell your work colleagues about it. That would be absolutely fantastic. A couple of shout outs. So you may have heard me mention about the Tough Girl Tribe, which is an awesome group, a closed Facebook group of women who listen to the podcast, who want to connect with other listeners of the podcast. It's a place where you can come and share your challenges, your goals, your ambitions, and get support. It's a place where you can ask questions, and it's a place where you can connect with other members of the tribe. So do come and find us. We're a very, very friendly group. So just a couple of massive well dones actually this week. So Sophie Green completed her first ultra marathon, the Race to the Stones. Absolutely fantastic achievement. A massive well done. A massive well done to Alison, who is over in Florida, who came second female and got her first placement in a 5K race. And Erin, I know you're sitting listening to the Tough Girl podcast on your commute to work today. So have a fantastic day. And to everybody else out there listening, whether you're on your commute to work, whether you're driving home from work, whether you're out on a run, whether you're just in the garden or you're just pottering around the house, I hope you have an incredible day. Thank you all again for listening. I really do appreciate your support. All of the information will be on the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. If you don't follow me on Twitter, come and check me out at _tough_girl. I'm also on Instagram at toughgirlchallenges. I've recently started uploading all of the podcasts onto YouTube as well. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, come and find that as well. All the links are on the website. And as always, if you want to send me a message, get in contact, I'd love to hear from you. Have an incredible week, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.